Shin Godzilla marked the first Godzilla film released by Toho in over a decade. After Godzilla Final Wars, Godzilla basically went quiet, minus a couple of cameos here and there. After the success of the 2014 Godzilla, Toho took the opportunity to announce that they were getting back into the Godzilla business again. But this time, instead of picking up where they left off and basically saying, ignoring all of the rest of the movies except for the original, this was going to be a full-blown reboot, ignoring every Godzilla movie, including the 54 version, basically starting over with a fresh canvas. And, similar to the original 54 version, this Godzilla would be made as kind of a take on a disaster that affected Japan greatly. In the case of Shin Godzilla, inspiration was drawn from the Fukushima earthquake and tsunami disaster of 2011. And it would basically be a take on Japan's response, or lack thereof, to the tragedy. And the movie was released to generally positive reviews. And now, having seen the movie all these years later, I can confirm that, yeah, the movie is very good. However, I do have a couple issues. This is very much a reality-based Godzilla film. There is no Ghidorah, there's no Mothra, there's no any of Godzilla's rogues gallery, quite frankly. This movie very much is kind of like, say, in the vein of something like a Deepwater Horizon. It basically follows the humans in that the humans have to react to this massive threat coming and basically destroying everything. Godzilla is not a vengeful hero, he is just a force of nature who is just out to destroy everything. Godzilla is just awesome in this movie, kind of similar to the 2014 version. You don't see a ton of him, but when you do see him, it's brutal stuff. Really, at first, when I first saw him on screen, I was like, okay, I have several questions. First of all, why does he have big old googly eyes? Like, seriously, those are his eyes look like those like eyes that like the black part, the iris, just kind of go around like that. Basically, the eyes that you see in Everything Everywhere All at Once. But then Godzilla transmogrifies himself into basically what looks like a combination of the 2014 Godzilla and the nuclear Godzilla, and he is downright terrifying in this movie. One of the best scenes is when Godzilla is ramping up for his nuclear breath, and the nuclear breath is just terrifying. It has multiple stages. It starts out as one thing, and then Godzilla's eyes go completely black. And when his eyes go black, his breath turns into just pure fire, and it just destroys everything in sight. And not only does he breathe fire, but his back dorsal fins shoot out fire and lasers as well. It's it's genuinely terrifying. If there's anything that modern Godzilla movies have gotten down perfectly, it's Godzilla's nuclear breath. It doesn't show up often, but when it happens, the the monster on the business end is getting barbecued. This is very much, like I said, focused on the humans reacting to a Godzilla-like monster showing up in our modern world. And for some, this could be disappointing. However, in small doses for me, I found it riveting. Like I said, the movie was basically designed as a commentary on the Fukushima response on the part of the Japanese government. And this is both a blessing and a curse because there are some very riveting dialogue scenes in which there are humans talking and they're breaking down the situation and they're realizing that we are this and Godzilla is this and we are pretty much screwed. On the other hand, the dialogue scenes tend to be very repetitive. I have no problem with with a monster movie especially, being tied into some kind of social commentary. I don't mind that at all. My problem, especially with Shin Godzilla, is the repetitiveness of it. It really boils down to there are several scenes in the movie where they just feel derivative of scenes that we saw earlier. And it doesn't help that they're talking about things that, quite frankly, would be like far down on the priority list when like a massive dinosaur whale monster shows up in my backyard, like next year's election and what happens in a post-Godzilla world. Like, let's focus on destroying Godzilla first, then let's pick up the pieces. There's a subplot throughout that other nations want to step in and help out Japan, but Japan is like, no, we got this. I mean, I would take the help personally, but the reasons for them not taking the help basically boil down to Japan's loans would default and they would be bankrupt as a nation. You're worried about stocks and bonds when Godzilla is in your city. Um, I don't know. I don't think Godzilla cares if the stock market is bull or bear. When they're solely focused on destroying Godzilla, that's where the movie shines. And they come up with a pretty clever way of stopping Godzilla. Without spoiling it, they basically freeze him. They freeze Godzilla, like base with some kind of liquid nitrogen, though it's not really liquid nitrogen. And at the end of the day, I'm going to give this movie a great rating. I like this movie just as much as the Gareth Edwards Godzilla. Both the American version of Godzilla from 2014 and Shin Godzilla from 2016 both are very good Godzilla movies, but for sort of different reasons. The American version of Godzilla, the human characters were not really that compelling, but the action was awesome. It's kind of the opposite with Shin Godzilla. The human characters are pretty interesting for the most part, and they're focused on stuff regarding how do we stop Godzilla. And we don't see Godzilla very much in the movie, which does hurt Shin Godzilla, but when you do see him, it's genuinely devastating. So it's perfectly possible to like both Gareth Edwards' Godzilla movie and Shin Godzilla. They both have merit. But I pass it off to you. What did you think of Shin Godzilla? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. And stay tuned for Wednesday, where we'll be talking about Kong's introduction into the MonsterVerse in Kong Skull Island.